Uh, Guys, welcome to our webinar series tonight. I'm Joe Karanja, a software engineer by profession, and it's been a journey, and this is our second month in this. And we are focusing on the theme Tech Tailored for Africa. And the theme for our webinar series is crafting effective African solutions. So we've been consumers for a long time, and we want to get to a point where we develop solutions that are addressing our local problems that we always experience. And last in the last session, which will happen on 24th of June, we were covering end-to-end ML system design with Victor Ashioya, and he mentioned a number of things. That is data pipeline and architecture, data pre-processing, model development and training, model selection strategies, training architecture types, debugging techniques, serving architectures, deployment strategies, and ML ops. And in all these, I'm sure the topic was in the machine learning domain. But what really stood out is how do we ensure that our solutions integrate with business processes? As we get to develop solutions, how do you ensure that you're crafting a solution that is integrating with the business processes, that is understanding that is synchronizing with the users that you are designing for or that you're developing for? And that's why we were also focusing on concepts such as user-centered design, and also, all in all, we are focusing on the problem. Before you create a solution, have you really focused on the problem and the best way to bring it out to the users? And our sessions run 1 hour, twice a month. This is our fourth session and our first also for this month. And with us today we have Maxwell. So Maxwell is a passionate advocate for sustainable entrepreneurship and a strong promoter of Africa's innovation potential. He brings wealth of experience working with startups, SMEs, investors, and government agencies to foster resilient and inclusive business ecosystems. So his key areas of expertise is empowering entrepreneurs, hands-on product leadership. So he's a leader in this space, and also program management for ecosystem growth, and he has a strategic vision. So the reason he stands out is because he combines his deep sector knowledge with practical hands-on support to founders and institutions, and aims to position Africa as a global innovation hub. And this is what excites me when we have young people who are focusing on creating solutions for Africa and even positioning us as a leader globally, even in innovation and in the solutions that we are creating. I'll give this chance and welcome Maxwell, who will be leading us in today's topic. He's going to introduce it. Let's buckle up and learn and be ready with questions by the end of the sessions. Thank you. This is Joe Karanja, your host for the day.
Yes, good evening. I hope we can all hear me. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, you can just put a thumbs up so that I can know that you can all hear me. Yeah. So thank you, Kiongozi Joe, for the good work that you're doing with InfoSpace and the chance that you've given me to just share a little bit. I know for the past, I think the last session was a bit technical um, in terms of the MLs and etc. But today, I'd really wish to go into a topic that is more generalized, but still very crucial for what we are doing and what you're building as Africa. And I believe that we want the best for the continent. We want the best for our country when it comes to what we are building in tech and generally the solutions that we are building so that that are going to be used by people. And that means, if that's the case, that means that we have to bear an understanding of the entire ecosystem and how it looks like. Um, so I'll again introduce myself briefly. I'm Maxwell Gad, a passionate community member for InfoSpace, and similarly founder for Impact 360. What we do there is decentralize resources to those who need them in tech and entrepreneurship. Now, the topic that I'm handling today, how I've just given a brief preview of it, is on understanding the African tech ecosystem. And to just get the first things first, that we have to understand that an ecosystem is a pool of every single detail that is needed within an ecosystem, right? Every single person that is needed within an ecosystem towards what you're building. Because now, what InfoSpace I've learned what they're advocating for, what we're advocating for InfoSpace, is that we have to raise we have to raise solutions which are tailored for those specific needs. But again, now sometime we'll have to go down to understand what the ecosystem generally looks like. And in ecosystem, we'll always have the ecosystem builders and the ecosystem enablers. Where do we fall under? We are the ecosystem builders because we are the people who are raising these solutions. We are the people who are building. We are actively involved directly in the building. And that's what makes us ecosystem builders. And then we have the ecosystem enablers, who are people like the investors, the government, those who create the favorable environment, whether it's through the policies or through funding. Um, but one thing that we have to know that we are how Joe represented for the first session that we had months ago, that we have the potential to actually build the continent. We have the talent, we have the resources that which if they're channeled towards the right direction, then definitely we're going to come up with something good. Bearing this in mind, then it gives us a space, or rather a point to take on the responsibility of building. And one thing that is interesting is that we, the young people, we have crazy numbers, guys. We have crazy numbers. That our landscape, we're talking about 1.4 billion people, median age under 20 at the moment, and that we are projected to go to even greater numbers in like by I think 2050. Nigeria, for an example, one of the richest countries in the world. Even at some point, I think it will be like competing with some continents because we are really having a high fertility rate when it comes to our numbers. The second thing, a metric that also excites me, is the fact that we have a fast growing mobile penetration, that our smartphone adoption has grown over time and is projected to be over 50% when it comes to now the entire continent. But I know in some countries such as Kenya, I think we are almost at 70-80% or even more when it comes to that penetration. Meaning we have access to information from wide in a wide scope, right? And then thirdly, one of the crazy statistics that also keeps me hopeful for what we're building in Africa is the fact that we are having rapid urbanization and increase to internet penetration. That is not how it was. Currently, you realize that the internet is reaching those areas that 5 years ago we never thought that we will get access to such strong internet. But now, step by step, we are moving towards that direction. That tells you that if we are to take the chance and opportunity to start building in tech at this point, then at least we're at some point where we can leverage the space that we have. Because we have, if you want to change Africa, it will take us. I always say that we are the present and the future workforce, meaning that we're already in the system of building and that we have to take up the responsibility to continue building Africa from where we found it. And with our smartphones and with the gadgets and with the increase in the infrastructure, actually we have to appreciate as well that the system that we have was not what it is 10 years ago. We have hubs coming up from right, left, and center. The only thing that we have to put down in mind is, are we responsible enough to make use of the little resources that we have? Yeah. So, can I maybe get the next slide? So, key growth drivers for the African tech ecosystem has been youth-led innovation, investor engagement, supportive policies, And then the mobile money. I know the mobile money, we might ask why the mobile money, but maybe I'll just take one by one step. Youth led innovation. With the numbers that we've seen, you realize that we are actually, we the young people, we are the backbone of the workforce of the continent. And with the rapid innovation, with the rapid ideas, right, left, and center, people coming up with solutions, whether it's in fintech, whether it's in health tech, whether it's in agri tech, whether it's in climate tech, all these brilliant solutions that are and innovation that are coming from our generation. Put in mind that compared to other generations, this this generation of Gen Zs and millennials are an informative generation where we have access to a lot of content and a lot of knowledge, a lot of we're exposed to knowledge and how it looks like, and this has facilitated the rate of innovation amongst our our team, our team in our generation. I mean, right? Number two, investor engagement. But before I go to investor engagement, I'll talk about supportive policies. In most of our African countries, we have we are constantly building or rather refining the policies that are governing the innovation sector, meaning that we are constantly coming up with policies that support the initiatives that are behind innovation. I know most of us have heard of startups, which I think is a major thing. Currently, if you innovation, the first thing that may come in your mind are startups. We find that the government, especially now in example in Kenya, we have a friendly ecosystem policies that drives innovation when it comes to registration processes of startup companies, when it comes to data protection. Though some may say otherwise with regards to the upcoming finance bill, but regardless, we have very flexible and very manageable policies that have helped the ecosystem rise. And now, with this point of the policies, we can get that the investors can also come in, because believe me, that investors only come in where uh, there are good policies, where there are good infrastructure, by the way. And we'll ask ourselves why Kenya has been leading when it comes to investor funds. Last year, we were talking about something around 2.2 billion in Kenya. I think Kenya was the lead country in Africa when it comes to investments. And also in 2023, we were also there at the top, right? What happens is investors are attracted to an ecosystem which supports growth, meaning government has to be in play, the founders have to be in play, those who are making policies have to be in play, right? Because now they look at the holistic point of things. For me to support innovation, which currently we are more like the tech centered uh, innovation, for us to get that ecosystem, for us to get funding, for us to get the investments, we need a stable ecosystem that is built internally. And what makes Kenya and Nigeria and South Africa leading is the policies and the infrastructure, because the investors, external investors, find it easily to come and work within the countries. And that's why we have a disparity maybe between Kenya and maybe Mauritius, or between South Africa and let's say Lesotho. It comes from the point of policies and infrastructure. Support only goes to those who are ready to be supported. Ready to mean those who are already building, those who are showing the resilience of building, not those who are waiting. Mobile money has been a center of African focus. That with the M-Pesa coming in play, I think in 2008, it has a global attention of how it was built. But now these are tech solutions that were built from the point of understanding our ecosystem, our life as Africans, where somebody goes ahead and realizes that I don't have to use a parcel every single now and then to send money. But what common thing I have that can be accessible by everybody is a mobile number and an identification number. And now tailoring a solution for money transfer through this approach has been a really outstanding thing, and a product that we really we really love from Africa. And you realize that the fintech space has been one of those major things because we have a large market which is constantly looking for ways of how to make payments easier and easier and easier. Put in mind that we still have doing a normal bank transfer will take up to 3 or 4 days business days. But now with fintechs, M-Pesa, Money Point, you can do an instant transaction, and that's why mobile money has been a very key figure in in the African tech ecosystem. The funding, the relationship, the money has connected almost everybody. So those are the key drivers that have enabled our tech ecosystem. Um, when you look at the ecosystem at the moment, because I believe that we're here to raise solutions, meaning that we have to be calculative enough. We have to build things which are relevant for Africa. We have to build things that we actually need, not things that we can build. No, there's a difference of building because you're skillfully uh, gifted or trained or willed, with building because you know the problem and you know what you should be building, right? And we realize that fintech, we still in Nigeria we have many fintechs, and recently I've had complaints. I don't know if you guys have had complaints of that we have fintechs offering the same solutions here and there, but regardless, fintech has been leading. And last year, I think almost 60% of the funding of around I think 1.2, 1.3 billion went to fintech in 2024. Closely, we have health tech, we have agri-tech, we have edtech, we have climate tech. I know there are other fields that I may not mention, but why am I measuring on these? Number one, you realize that these solutions, or rather, building around these sectors, these are sustainable uh, pillars that won't stop. We will continuously need to transact money. Number one. Number two, the health. We will always need health, the health systems. Agriculture will always need to eat, right? EdTech will always need to learn. Climate tech, the climate change and everything that comes with it will definitely need to understand how things are moving. So I'm more biased around these sectors, especially the agri-tech, EdTech, and agri-tech, EdTech, and health tech, because these are primary, the basic needs of food, shelter, clothing. Let me dismiss shelter for a minute, but food, clothing, and even shelter and clothing, they still affect the health. The basic, it's like those are the basic needs. You need to learn the primary thing. You need to eat agri-tech, and you need to the health tech. They form a basis of a long-term need. We have a lot of needs under our health tech. We have a lot of need under agriculture. We have a lot of need under education. I'll give examples. Let's say an example in health tech. In health tech, or in health, not health tech, in health, we have issues with. I've been into hospitals where we still have sharing of beds, where we still have inefficiency in terms of drugs because of the remote areas and etc. Right? But I believe that we can raise solutions that can help solve this need because health is there to stay. That's for example. We have issues like now. Example, we had. I don't know if you heard about the virtual hospital that is built, I think, in China, or rather, we can get solutions such as I think startups such as the Now. They distribute drugs across, right? You don't have to necessarily be in the hospital. Something like Rivercare startup, which is necessarily for women. You can access direct consultancy with doctors through these platforms. They are built in tech. They're solving the real problems that we're facing. They're making our lives easier. That's the example in health tech. When I go to agriculture, we have issues with the supply chain. We have issues with the supply chain. We now had trigger foods. I know that currently trigger foods are closing down, but we had them for a longer time when they would connect farmers to markets, right? We have storage. We still have the finance part of things coming in play. I think there's a startup which is working on fintech specifically for farmers. So we have many problems within these domains that can still be solved. If you go to EdTech, we still have packed universities that accommodate more people, even in our high schools. The standard number for students per class should be, I think, around 20, but we'll have classes with 100 and etc. How can we solve all this? That's why my major, my key area, or what my bias is in health tech, agri tech, and ed tech. Yep. Next, funding trends. Funding trends. I know you might be thinking that these things doesn't involve you, but I assure you, when you're building solutions, you'll need policies, good policies. When you're building solutions, you'll need funding, and that's why we have also to at least look at what's happening. I think I've even mentioned some of all these things briefly. You look at some in 2020, 2022, no 2024. In 2022, we were at our peak of investments, especially after COVID. After COVID, we had more solutions coming out from tech, where most things were taken to virtual spaces, and now we had to formulate things that can be done virtually. And we got a rise of many applications that are facilitating such initiatives. And we had the peak of investments in 2022. In 2024, we had the 2.2 billion USD investment in Africa, with Kenya taking, I think, close to 30% of that. And then currently, as we speak, Africa has raised close to 1 billion, meaning that we might raise more money by the end of the year, this year. But still, majority of the money still goes to, a large portion of the funds still goes to the fintech. While I still believe if we can raise more solutions in these other fields, the health, the agriculture, the education, then we can recover more funds to all those places. Because as much as we need to transact money, we still have sick people in the hospitals. We still have people who need food outside there. We still have people who still lack education, access to learning. Education is not primarily through the school setup, but any form of training that brings knowledge. And this year we are in a groove that we are raising more money by media. So far, I've not heard about any unicorn built in Africa. But regardless, we still hope, because unicorn is not the goal, but raising a solution that is relevant to the market becomes a primary goal, right? So we have to also break down how funding and all those things happen, and hopefully, I know InfoSpace will bring more spaces where, as we build in tech, we'll get to understand how now we get this product now deeply to the market. How do we do the testing? How do we get ourselves to investors? What do investors look for? How do they allocate funding? How does it go? Because as much as we are building, we need funding to get the solutions outside there, right? Yeah, next. So yeah, we have these three startups: a fintech, a health tech, and an ed tech. You can check on them. We know of M-Pesa, we know of 54 Gene, we know of Mandela. Mandela is one of our good edtech facilities that we have in Africa. They have trained a lot of people in tech skills and other skills relevant into entrepreneurship. They were built from Nigeria. I think the founder of Mandela is also one of the co-founders to Flutterwave, which is also a fintech. So these solutions that are raised, they are more relevant. They are only still in the market because of the relevancy. The moment a startup fails, or the moment your innovation or idea fails to be relevant, meaning I can build something cool, but as long as it's not benefiting the ecosystem, as long as the market is not understanding it, as long as it does not making sense to anybody, it can look cool, it can have all these features, but as long as I don't have a reason to use it, then it becomes meaningless. That's now where we have to get back to now the startup case studies, because all these things start from where we are at this point. And I usually stress that we can take our school projects seriously, right? We can actually identify real problems, build upon those problems. You never know which is the next M-Pesa, which is the next Andela, which is the next Flutterwave. Because if we take all these things seriously and build upon real solutions, real sector things that are affecting our people, then we are going to literally have a good ecosystem. So the ecosystem is built with a founder who understands the market, with an investor who understands the market, with the government or a policy developer who understands the market. So as I build my solution as a software engineer, as I build my solution, as I build my setup and etc., I have understanding that this is what the market needs. I have understanding now. This is how I'm going to get that fund. I have understanding. This is how I'm going to take this product to the market. All of that is needed for the ecosystem to develop, and that's why we are doing this session. Next, I think we are almost moving towards the end. Key challenges. Infrastructure remains a key problem in Africa. Access to resources, access to experts, inefficiency in terms of skill development has been a key problem. So infrastructure in terms of power, in terms of internet, not everybody can access power, by the way. I think it was just last year when Africa was celebrating, was it 57 or 1% of our milestone of getting to those levels. We're still not there. Data infrastructure, now that we're in an age of artificial intelligence, we are still, I think Africa still lacks a data center. The only first one to be mentioned has not even started being built, which will be by Steve Mariwa, I guess, something of the some name, with partnership with NVIDIA. That's the only one I've heard about, and it's going to be built in South Africa. We still lack these fundamental infrastructures. When we get to maybe schools, we still have people who still they still study under trees, you know. So sometimes you get that bring the tech solutions to some African markets won't be possible. If I build a software for maybe a health management system for a hospital, and the hospital lacks power, then how are we going to use it? How is it beneficial to that hospital? Right? If I build a tool, let's say like Moodle, that can be that can should be facilitating learning for schools and and universities, and you find a school that lacks power, a school that doesn't understand how to the basic understanding of what use of the computer and etc. That means we are going to be lagging behind, and that in itself puts our ecosystem in yet pulls us down as an ecosystem. So infrastructure has been one of the key issues, and I said it before that investors look at the level of work put by individuals. Individuals to mean as Kenya, what are we doing for our infrastructure? Because they only invest in a country that is focused, and the only focus is that if we make use of the links that we have, then we can attract more. I've worked with an investment company, and currently I work as director of innovation and entrepreneurship development at BNB Global Investments. And sometimes when there's a talk around which country or which region to invest in, one of the primary things that is looked up to is how much effort those within the ecosystem are making. And so we should take keynote of that. Regulatory complexity. So I was reading the finance bill. I don't know if you guys have read the finance bill, but I was going through the finance bill to look at the sector of entrepreneurship and tech development around those things. And I realized that now there are issues around policies that we might have to struggle with. Example, if you have a startup at the moment, initially we never had much taxation that went to startups. But currently something around that might be introduced. With regards to data, there's a lot of strict regulations that are coming with data. Where, example, if you use somebody's picture in your website, in your phone, anywhere, without the consent, we have all those payments. We have 5 million for a company or an organization and 3 million for an individual, right? Though luckily we still have that negotiation around reducing registration prices for the company for registration of the startups, which are fair cases, right? But now, if you have policies such that the taxation kind of policies, don't think that is fair, because most of us we only raise solutions. We can't pay much of the guys who we have to help us. So if you start taxing the little that we have that we should be using in building, then we will have an issue, a little bit of an issue. But that is how policies affect how we move and executive. Talent shortages and brain drain. I always don't want to mix these two things, talent shortages and brain drain, but today I was forced to mix them because I can't say that there's a shortage of talent when we are exporting our best skills outside there. We find it more flexible to build for Microsoft and etc. And I don't judge anybody by saying that's almost 90, 80, close to 70% of every developer I meet. Their goal is always to work with these big startups and big companies, the Microsoft and the M-Pesa and the Money Points, you know. But you never know what the idea that you have, what it can bring. The M-Pesa was just an idea. The Money Point was just an idea. Trigger Foods, as much as it's draining at the moment, was just an idea. So we have the potential to build solutions beyond what we think about it. We can't we can't afford to underestimate the potentials we have as individuals, as developers. Most times I hear the notion that developers, the only thing they know is to code. But I beg to differ. And I will say that we can go to the markets and learn. We ourselves have an experience of the problems that we're facing. That means we have understanding of where we're going to. We have the experience. Therefore, we can define how we build our talents. We can define the skills that we need and the solutions that we need for our markets. So I usually stand for that our talents, we have talent in Africa, though maybe not fully equipped to the levels that is needed, but at least we're in a position to build by our own. Then we have limited access to capital and growth stage capital. That has been the issue. Currently, I was reading an article a few months ago around investments, and there was I think it was a developer. He was making a joke that you need a muzungu, you need a white man to get investments, which is a very crazy thing, a very realistic scenario in Kenya specifically, where it's difficult to get investments, especially from outside, if you don't have a white man as your co-founder. But I believe, and how I'm saying this with a lot of confidence, that last year we had we had an increase of like 30% of investments were from Africa itself. That means we have people who are waking up to start investing in the continent because they understand it. Down from less than 17% in the previous years, we have people who are waking up with like 15%. We have more people who can now understand you and invest in you, even without you having a muzungu around. You can build an authentic solution, take it to the market and test it, get the grants, get the investor funds. Lack of limited access of capital. One thing I want to say that we'll never have enough. Sometimes I see a majority of us complaining. We have many developers who have built solutions, but they have lacked funding. We complain. Sometimes we complain. As I feel like sometimes we get too much of the complaints. Do you know why? Because even with the little one that we have, we can't make use of it. That's my one problem with some of us as founders. Number two, we get into investments without an understanding of how investments work. Right? You want to be invested in, We don't understand the metrics that are being looked at, but we just want to be invested in. We don't understand, we don't even have the markets. To some extent, we've always taken investment as our right, but that's not the case. In most cases, viability and sustainability becomes the real aspect. So even as we continuously think about raising solutions that are tailored for Africa, can we sit down and understand how the funding ecosystem works? Lest we will end up getting frustrated with the solutions and innovations. Because I believe our innovations are not only for us, but they're for people. But to build it, we'll have to bootstrap or seek for investment. Next. Emerging opportunities that we have. I don't know if you've heard about this. Currently, we have something called the African Free Trade Area, African Continental Free Trade Area. It's one of those initiatives by our 54 countries that aims to unlock the trade barriers that we have within the continent. They aim to give us access to different markets. That means we have more ease to build a solution in Kenya and use it across. You can use it in Nigeria. You can use it um, in Uganda and Rwanda and etc. Because the African Free Continental Area is an initiative that aims to break the barrier, meaning accessibility of markets is becoming more lighter by the day. I know at this point we're not still experiencing it to the point where it's been described, but at least there's some steps that are being made to make sure that as Africans we can operate in any market without any hindrance. For those who know about flights, you realize that, example now in flight sector, you realize that sometimes you have to get outside Africa to get back to Africa. You are traveling to Nigeria, but sometimes you have to move to Dubai, then fall back to Africa. But do we really need that? We don't need that, right? So these initiatives are for us, and we have to figure out now that we are building in tech, you have to have in mind that your solution can be used not only in Kenya, but you can think expansively for the African market. Me saying this doesn't mean that you should start focusing now on Africa. I believe that we can start small, build a solution for Nakuru, build a solution for Nairobi, expand it for Rift Valley, expand it for Kenya, expand it for East Africa, progressive building. But put in mind that you have access. And those are the few things that the government are doing so that we can be there. Emerging opportunities also come through localization. Localization to mean that sometimes we struggle in raising solutions that are not, that we will struggle to get markets for. I go to maybe raise a solution that is only relevant in USA because of the ecosystem that is built around USA. What about the local mamamboga that you have? How many have thought of a solution for the local mamamboga, for our local schools, for our local universities, for our local health centers? Raising solutions from a point of assertiveness and sensitivity to what we are seeing and the experience. I mean, Kabarak, Nakuru, which problem have I experienced? Or even if I'm not experienced, which problem have I noticed people experiencing? Not only just building from assumption, but building with an understanding of what is really happening in the market. Rise of African SaaS and cross-border B2B, business to business. I think we're living in a point where working with various companies, working with various facilities, or bringing solutions to various domain organizations, etc., is more easier than what it used to be. Currently, you can have an idea and tell Joe Karanja from Lishe AI that this is your idea and figure out how to partner with them. You can have your startup and somebody, person B, also have the startup, and you realize that okay, we are serving the same market. We can literally partner and build solutions for those markets. You don't necessarily have to build for yourself. Collaboration, we will have platforms that can facilitate some of the things that you're doing. If I'm building maybe an event ticketing platform, do I have to literally come up with another fintech to operate in that? No, I can integrate somebody's solution to enhance my solution. I can build a ticketing platform, and maybe if I have an M-Pesa, giving a integrated M-Pesa, integrate a money point, you don't literally have to build other things from scratch. You can focus on your solution, and currently we are blessed that we have many startups across every field. How can we integrate so that we can come up and solve our local needs as we think about going globally? Then lastly, under emerging opportunities, that we have access to global networks and the remote works and etc. But I don't want to talk about remote work, global networks. We have access to Africans in diaspora. We can learn a lot of things. Currently, it is China, I think, which is much ahead when it comes to uh, artificial intelligence. We can organize for trainings, combined trainings. We can organize for learning. We can organize for hackathons. Currently, if you follow some company called Clutch Foundry, they had a joint hackathon on health tech, a combination between UK and Kenya Clutch Foundry, and it was a great success. We can access these resources, and currently, as Africa, we will not have any excuse. For the past years, we've heard about we were colonized and all those kind of stories. But at this point, we're on a flat ground where we who are in tech, we have to spearhead building, and we have to build with understanding to the points where we lack those high level knowledge we can seek, we can outsource. And the tech has made world a global village where access is very easy. Next. How to get involved. For an ecosystem to be complete, every single player has to be involved. That means I have to understand my role as a software developer. I have to understand my role as an investor. I have to understand my role as a partner, as an ecosystem enabler, that is the government, those guys who come with policies. And similarly, as a founder, I have to understand and appreciate an investor's role. I have to understand and appreciate a policy developer role because we are building an ecosystem. We want solutions which are tailored for Africa, which is a rallying call that InfoSpace has been calling, that we have to build solutions which are tailored for Africa. We are not going to build it alone if we only seclude ourselves as tech developers. We're not going to build it alone if we only integrate ourselves with tech people. That solution that you're building is needed by every single person, not necessarily the tech developers themselves. There's somebody who won't care about your code, but he'll care about how your product works, right? And that is how an ecosystem works. So for tech developers now, our main responsibility as those who are raising solutions is that we have to understand who we are servicing. When you get to know who you're servicing, you will get an intel of how to service him and what you need to service that the market. So without us understanding who we are servicing, we can't build a solution which is tailored for Africa if we can't understand what Africa looks like, who Africans look like, how the market looks like, what the market looks like, how the market operates. Because what defines all these things is the understanding. Now, this is the market. I have the market, I understand how they work, I understand the problems that they are facing. That means if I understand the problem, I have a direction on how to solve those problems. And if I know have a direction how to solve the problems, it defines the type of product that I'm going to build. Meaning, we have to embrace the lean structure of building. I love the lean methodology. If somebody, I think most of us have heard about the lean methodology of building, where it advocates that we have to build products with the market. You don't build a product and take it to the market. You build a product with the market. And that is the key rallying call for me in this sector, understanding the African tech ecosystem, that as we The ecosystem is not only for developers, by the way. The tech ecosystem is for everybody. I know most times it's only us developers who embrace the name tech ecosystem. But like, when you go deeply, when one part of the ecosystem is missing, the entire ecosystem can't function. And that's how bad it is, right? So we have to play our role of getting down to the markets and understanding how the markets operate. We have many applications with a founder and a CTO logging into those applications with nobody else because we can't understand why you build those solutions. So we have many floating applications in the Google Play Store and etc. Not because you've not built it beautifully. The designs are okay, the colors are very encouraging, but I don't have the reason to use those applications. You've not given me a reason. Yet I have a need, but you've not given me a reason because you've built for the market. You've not built the market. Next, I think this will be the last slide. My last thoughts are that the African ecosystem is a dynamic. Every one of us has an opportunity to build a solution. Don't limit yourself because you're seeing applications going right later, left and center. The fact that there's an M-Pesa doesn't mean that there should not be a fintech platform. The fact that they might be as Zendawa doesn't mean they should not be under health tech pharmaceutical kind of enabler. With your idea, the only person who should challenge you or the only person who should stop you from building is the market, not any other person. Consult to the market. That is the key determinant. Go to the market as you build a product, as you build your innovation. I'm not this lover of school projects most times, honestly, because the school projects limit. Once you build a project, there's no room for you to literally go and test your product because you build from assumption. You think they might need it, but do they really need it? Have you ever asked yourself that? Now, how do we find out if they really need it? We have to build with them and we have to build for them. And that is how I'll end my session for today. That we have a large potential to build. We have the space, we have opportunity, we have the resources to build. They might be limited, but they're there. So my summary is for us, because I know the majority for us are developer, we have to build with understanding. So I'll give space for Q&As and get it back to Joe Karanja, our host for the day. Back to you, Kiongozi,
Thank you,
as
Max.
we
Let's
get the
appreciate.
questions.
Yeah, let's appreciate Max. That was a great talk, very great session, especially for us developers. I can see there is a raised hand. Uh, Feel free to unmute and ask the question. That was Mason Zadok.